There's a story about two brothers who were always troublemakers. They were always getting in trouble. They were always skipping school. They were always doing things, cutting up, playing practical jokes. And so their mother and their father were like, we don't know what to do. They tried to punish them. They tried to take away their toys, and nothing worked. And so they said, well, we're going to put them in a parochial school. Maybe the nuns will take care of them. Get them in line. So they put them in school. Still, they were cutting up. So the teachers tried everything. They put them in detention. They gave them extra homework. They made them skip recess. They did all these things to try to get them to behave or conform. Maybe that's the word. And nothing worked. So they said, okay, we're going to send you to the priest. The principal was a priest. So the priest said, okay, I want to see them one at a time. So Johnny goes into the priest's office, and the priest says, okay, Johnny, you've been listening to your lessons. Please tell me, where is God? And Johnny just sat there. He said, Johnny, I know you've been listening, hopefully. Where is God? And he just kind of sat there and the priest finally said, Johnny, where is God? Johnny jumped up and ran home and went to the closet, hid himself, and his brother said, what happened? What's going on? And Johnny said, you better be careful. God is missing, and they think we had something to do with it. So we laugh. But what I want to say about that is there's some truth in that. God is missing. If God is missing, then we have something to do with that. In fact, we have everything to do with that. Because God can only be missing in our own thoughts, our own feelings. God can only be missing when we forget our unity. Isn't that what we are all about? Unity. The word says it all. But when we believe that we are separate from the source, then we have the fear. We feel fear, don't we? And so we then begin to act out of that and create out of that and begin to project that onto other people. So our choice is to reclaim God. Reclaim and place that idea of God where it belongs, which is right here, in and as each of us. Reclaim our unity. And so that's what I want to talk about today and share some of my thoughts about that. We have been looking at the last few weeks our mission statement, which is, again, for those of you who may not have been here, an encapsulation of our deepest calling as a community. And our deepest calling as a community can only become a reality when each one of us is willing to own that mission. Do you agree with me? And so a couple of weeks ago, we looked at, well, let's read our mission statement together. Which says what? We put God first, celebrate life, live unity principles, and empower each other to transform our lives. So today, I want to explore this idea of living unity principles and share some things that came to me as I've been meditating on it. As I've said before, I want to own it for myself. And when I want to own something like that, I have to ask the question for myself. And I invite you to ask the question for yourself, what does this really mean? What do I mean when I say I live unity principles? And even deeper than that, why does it matter? Why does it matter? And so many of you, if you're not new to, maybe you are new to unity, that unity has 5 basic principles. And these 5 basic principles have been around for a while, and they've sort of stuck, and we've all been talking about them for many years. They came out of an interview that Charles and Myrtle Fillmore's granddaughter did with Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, co-founders of Unity. Their granddaughter did an interview for a magazine article, and she came up with these, and they just kind of stuck. So I'm not going to go into any depth about them today. You probably say, thank God. But I'm just going to touch on them briefly. So the 5 basic principles, the first one is God is. God is all. God is. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago, didn't we? And I want to remind you of what, again, let me just take a breath. Let me take a breath. I want to be grounded here with you all. So breathe with me, if you will. Let's breathe into our hearts right here, right now, opening our hearts, opening ourselves up, opening up to the vessel, be vessels of this divine energy that God is. And as I said when I talked about this, that I know that there are many ways of understanding this word, God. And I know that whatever words I choose to associate with this word, God, are simply pointers, simply my way of trying to express what I understand that word to be. And so what I said about that is that I believe that this energy that we call God is this evolutionary life force that is inherent in all of creation, that is constantly inspiring, awakening to unity or oneness, and the emergence of conscious love. And so I believe that God, that we call God, again, we just encapsulate all of our understanding into this one word. And we say God is in everything, as everything, everywhere present. Everywhere present. Omniscience. Omniscience, omnipresence, omnipotence, everywhere present. And then we affirm that if that is everywhere present, inherent in all of creation, then it must be in you and me. It must be that which we are. You with me? It must be that which we are. We are not separate from that energy. How could we be if it's everywhere present, right? And the next one is, what is the next one? I create my reality. That's a big one, isn't it? We talk about that. That's one of the foundational teachings of unity, isn't it? That what we put out, we get back. The law of mind action. Thinking, feeling, energy projected into the law, which is what Ernest Holmes, the founder of religious science, called it the law. What we think about, we get about, right? That's what we teach, the law of mind action, the law of attraction, however you want to see that. And then I pray. I had a quote from Eric Butterworth, the great unity teacher, and my Remarkable ran out of power, so it said plug me in. Maybe I need to plug myself in. I love what Eric Butterworth says about prayer, and if you haven't read his book, The Universe is Calling, I highly recommend that book. It has become, in some ways, my go-to reference when I talk about prayer. Because what he talks about, prayer, is that it is a consciousness, our consciousness, centered in that divine flow. It's our consciousness centered in the divine flow, that divine life force energy that is the very essence of us. And it's an active, and Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, calls it a mind action, an activated mind action that joins my mind with that mind. And then the fifth one is that it's not enough to know this stuff, we must live it. I live the truth I know. All right. So, what came to me this week is something I want to share with you. And I want to maybe I'm going to do this in a little bit different way, a reference that came to me that said to me, you, take a breath, you do not live these principles. These principles live you. These principles live you. Because if it's unity, it's all one. Everything, every one of those 5 statements is true, and the only place you and I have any control over is number 4. You agree? You with me? That is our conscious access point to all of the others. Because each one of us, God is, that's a given. You are that expression, that's a given. You create your reality according to the mind action, that's a given. That's a principle. And you live the truth you know, that's a principle. We all live the level of truth that we're willing to know. Not just believe, not just think, but the level of truth that we're willing to know. Well, what is the truth? Now, Jesus said, you shall know the truth, and that truth will set you free. That's why it matters. That's why it matters. Freedom. But he didn't say, sometimes we hear it say, the truth shall set you free. Absolutely not. The truth doesn't set you free until you know the truth. Until you know it deep in the core of your being and live that truth of oneness. And then we are set free. Free to be, free to create, free to love, free to simply be the very presence of that life right here and right now. That's why it matters. Because what I know is that when we continue, if we have a belief that we are separate, if we have misplaced God out there, guess where we're going to be seeking God? Out there. Guess where we're going to be seeking that connection through relationships or through money or through success or through, I love that image of Jesus in the desert when he's being tempted. After he was baptized and he was in the desert, in the wilderness being tempted. And those temptations were all about, you've got, if you are powerful, so how many of us chase power? If you have everything, if you're prosperous, well then you found God. Prestige and power and position, and all of the things that we believe will save us from fear, from separation. All of those things. But what is our salvation? What is our salvation? Knowing our unity, saving us from fear, from acting in fear. And when we act in fear, we not only harm ourselves, we harm each other. We harm our environment. We harm the earth. So what is the salvation? What is our salvation? That's not even a word that I had considered this week. What is our salvation? It is in knowing these truths. Knowing these truths at a very deep level, and then living those truths consciously. So I would invite us to, rather than maybe saying, I live unity principles, those principles live us. I consciously live the unity principle. Because unity is a principle. It is a principle because it never changes. You already are that. And when we can accept that and own that and embody that and live that, then we can know that everything we have ever sought, we already are. Everything we have ever been seeking, love and prosperity and freedom and all the ideas that we associate with that, we already are that. You already are that. Do you believe it? Do you know it? Sometimes. Exactly. Sometimes. I'm with you. Sometimes. You know, I grew up in the Baptist church. Some of you can probably relate. And sometimes those scripture verses resonate in my mind when I'm meditating. Or some songs will resonate in my mind when I'm meditating. And what came up to me this week, and I wrote about it a little bit, was probably the scripture I heard in the Baptist church every Sunday. God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. I want you to know that life energy that we call God is so much love. It's love that loved itself into beingness as you. For God, so being love, can only be love, and loved itself into expression as you. So that the world through you and your expression of love might be uplifted, might be saved, if you will. Might be enlightened, if you will. Guess what? It also says, for God did not send you into the world to condemn or judge the world. Woo, that's a big one. But that the world might be uplifted, freed from fear, freed from that endless seeking of God out there somewhere. So I invite you to own that, to accept that, to allow that, because I do believe that is our freedom. And when we own it, when we know it, when we recognize that the unity principle is always working, we don't have any control over it. God is, you are, you create according to your energy field. And you are always living the truth at the level that you choose to know it. And why do we need to pray? Well, prayer is about conditioning our minds, aligning with that truth, and embodying that truth, and being that truth of oneness. And when we know our oneness, how could we ever want to harm any aspect of God, of ourselves? How could we ever want to harm anything or anyone? So, I know I'm probably preaching like a Baptist preacher this morning, and I apologize for that. But sometimes I get excited and jump around up here. But I am excited about this. I'm excited about this realization, this recognition, that it's really not about me living these principles, but it's about allowing these principles to live as me and making a conscious choice to connect, to access through prayer and meditation and silence. That love, that light, that all that we associate with the vibration, the frequency that we call God. And to as much as I possibly can, connect with that same life energy in everything. In everything. Everyone and everything, because that is where the healing comes. That is how we uplift the world. That is how the world is saved, if you will, using that scripture. That is how the world is redeemed. But we get to redeem our own world first, the world of our thoughts and our feelings and our actions. Yeah. So I consciously live the unity principle because I know at the depth of my being I am one with you, with those that I totally, completely disagree with, who have opinions that just hurt my heart. Can I find a place within me that can be redeemed and hold that in love? Again, I'm not advocating pacifism. I'm not. But our opportunity truly is to be in that place of love. Because that is where our salvation lies, and that is where our freedom lies.